A Great Argead Saga. ALEXEINE, Volume I, Telesias, The War Dance, by Macaulay. A new episode every day. Episode 02. Acknowledgements. The Grand Deception, Reclaiming the Architects of Empire. The preface to ALEXEINE, Volume I, Teresias, The War Dance, History Lies, Hidden Truths. At the absolute lexicon of this grueling intellectual journey, the completion of ALEXEINE, Volume I, Teresias, The War Dance, I stand in the cold clinical clarity of a supreme realization. We have systematically dismantled the monolithic architecture of historical deception that has, for millennia, held the global intellect in a vice of pure propaganda. Consider the world's most renowned ancient hero and conqueror, Alexander the Great. At the mere age of 22, he began his historic march into Asia Minor, liberated Egypt from the yoke of Persia, and systematically dismantled the Achaemenid Empire, ultimately pushing his vanguard to the very edge of the known world. How does a youth of 22 command a massive, disparate coalition army drawn from every corner of Greece? How does a boy possess the staggering tactical foresight and geopolitical mastery to execute a campaign of such catastrophic scale? The traditional, romanticized stereotypes of Alexander's youth and his parents completely defy logic. A 22-year-old king does not spontaneously invent the mechanics of global empire. Who trained Alexander and organized his elite officer corps? Who taught him the brutal, calculated choreography of international diplomacy? Most importantly, who built the terrifying geopolitical machine that propelled his conquest? Before Alexander could become great, before he could become a legend, the Argead dynasty had already achieved the impossible. Under the brilliant, ruthless direction of King Philip II and his queen Olympias of Epirus, Macedon conquered and unified the fiercely independent Greek states under a single imperial banner. Philip and Olympias were the true architects of Alexander's mind and the supreme engineers of the Pan-Hellenic Crusade that swallowed Asia. The long-accepted courtly framing of the Argead house, which reduces King Philip II to a barbaric, drunken, and coward despot, and demeans Queen Olympias as a volatile, fiercely jealous, and wicked sorceress, is a profound, historicized lie. It is an aesthetic of convenience fabricated nearly 5 centuries after the fact by Athenian historical fiction writers masquerading as chroniclers. Their singular, coordinated strategy was to diminish, distort, and castrate the astonishing geopolitical achievements of Philip and Olympias, ensuring that the true origin of the Hellenic Empire remained buried beneath an avalanche of partisan ink. This volume exposes the unyielding geometric truth behind the dynasty. Philip and Olympias were not a fractured house of domestic dysfunction. They were a highly intelligent, lethal power couple, an absolute integration of statecraft, intellect, and sheer force of will. Together, they engineered a paradigm shift that unified the fiercely autonomous Greek polis and constructed the world's first absolute war apparatus, the Pan-Hellenic conquest machine. They forged this predatory engine of empire with one precise destination in mind, placing their son, Alexander III, at its absolute operational center. It was the structural perfection of this machine that allowed the young king, following his father's tragic assassination, to thrust the Macedonian vanguard across Asia Minor and utterly dismantle the Persian Empire. Alexander's staggering triumphs were not an individual anomaly. They were the execution of a pre-calculated architectural design left behind by his parents. The true source of this legend, the catalyst for this entire global inversion, begins in the late summer of 368 BCE. It was then that another hidden truce was forged in the shadows. To understand the son, one must dissect the origins of the father, who trained the young Prince Philip of Macedon to become a king capable of subjugating all of Greece, who truly educated the last son of King Amyntas III. The answer lies in the city of the Seven Gates. At the height of Theban military supremacy, 3 legendary figures operated as the grand architects of Macedon's future. Epaminondas, the stoic master of strategy, Pelopidas, the fiery commander of the sacred band, and Epaminondas, Philip's private military mentor. Together, they nurtured and conditioned the 14-year-old captive prince within the crucible of Thebes. They did not merely hold Philip as a political hostage. They systematically initiated him into the supreme militaristic tactics and geopolitical maneuvers of their era. This was a calculated, unspoken covenant. Philip was forged to rule his own fractured kingdom, to stand alongside Thebes and ultimately to spearhead a pan-Hellenic crusade aimed at crushing Persia from its insidious influence. Alexander the Great did not invent this crusade. He inherited its completion. The grand campaign into Asia was never a single, spontaneous vision belonging to Alexander III. It was a seed planted in the fertile strategic soil of Thebes, carried north by Philip, refined into an absolute weapon by the Argead power couple, and handed to Alexander to unleash upon the world. This is the absolute origin of the legend, a lethal lineage spanning 3 generations. It began with the intellectual mastery of Epaminondas, Pelopidas, and Pelopidas in Thebes. It mutated and hardened into raw ambition through Philip II, until the Argead king and his Molossian queen flawlessly crafted their son Alexander to become the ultimate pan-Hellenic monarch. The sovereign who would rule all of Greece not merely as a king, but as a son of Zeus. To those rare, unyielding minds who walked alongside me through the dark corridors of this research, to the archivists who guarded the fragmenting scripts of antiquity, and to the silent sentinels who demanded nothing less than the absolute truth, I offer no casual gratitude. I offer you an immutable pledge of intellectual alliance, anchored in the iron of the history we have reclaimed. The myth has been dissected. The architecture of the lie has collapsed, and the true blueprints of empire are finally laid bare. This great Argead saga, ALEXEINE, Alexander the Great Volume I. Teresias, the War Dance, unrolls its first canvas in the cataclysmic year of 368 BCE. It was a moment of absolute fracture for the House of Macedon. King Alexander II, the eldest son of Amyntas III, was brutally assassinated, leaving the throne a bleeding shell, surrounded by predatory barbarian nations. In that hour of desperate calculation, Queen Eurydice made a calculated, agonizing choice to safeguard the final hope of her dynasty. Her youngest and last remaining son, Prince Philip, was sent into the south, exchanged as a political hostage to secure the fragile borders of his homeland. Yet, what was intended as an isolation became a crucible. The boy did not merely endure his captivity, he evolved. Within the laboratories of the Seven Gates, Philip was systematically trained and educated under legendary generals who had achieved the impossible, lifting a small agricultural city-state into the seat of absolute military supremacy over all of Greece. Here, within this precise intersection of time and tragedy, lies the hidden blueprint for the global empire, later realized by his son, Alexander the Great. It was the tactical architecture of Thebes that forged the father, who in turn constructed the son to unleash upon Asia. I hope you find yourself as thoroughly mesmerized by the unraveling of this grand Argead tapestry as I was while reconstructing its lost arithmetic. It has been a profound, visceral journey to breathe the iron back into these stones. Sincerely, Macaulay, A Great Argead Saga. ALEXEINE, Volume I. Telesias, The War Dance. A new episode every single day. We are dropping a new episode every day until the epic conclusion of Volume I. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 5 to 15-minute hit of cinematic historical drama, perfect for your daily plunge into antiquity. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full saga now. Bookmark Volume I, Telesias playlist. Subscribe to follow the rise of the Argead dynasty. Thumbs up to help push our vanguard through the algorithm's gauntlet. Comment below. F.